Alright, in this video, I wanted to do a reaction to a video that was recently published by the Abba Preach channel. This video is about forgiving our parents. So, let's go ahead and watch.
But guys, this is the most beautiful thing. There's a point where your parents go from being your parent to your friend. And you're no longer just looking at them laterally. Now you're looking at them horizontally. And eventually you're the one who's looking down as they're starting to struggle. So you have to have that mindset of realizing there's going to be an evolution provided you guys both try to grow together. You know, the first time you had to figuratively slap your parents upside the head and be like, go to your doctor's appointment.
Yeah!
Bro, I could look at my mom and be like, hey, stupid, you about to go blow you! How you were raised.
Alright, let's get to it.
Did your parents do a good job? I don't want you to answer too quickly. I want you to think about the question. And what's your answer?
Why is...
It's better when you explain it.
Okay, peep game. So this guy comes up to me, right? This guy comes up to me. And it's like, did your parents do a good job? And I was like, well, I mean, they did the best they could. And it's like, that's not what I asked you. And, and he said, what I mean is, I could try to perform an open heart surgery and do my best. Somebody's dying. Because even though I'm doing my best, I'm not going to do a good job because that's not what I do.
Yeah, true.
Did your parents do a good job?
That's a good-ass question now that you explain it like that. I feel like people are not fully developed until, like, I don't think ever. So it's like, for a person to say they gave you the best at the time that you were a child, who knows? Maybe their best comes after. Maybe their best was before. But, that doesn't mean that they gave it to you while you necessarily needed it. And when I say maybe they were the best before, maybe it was the best before because it was just maybe one or two children. But then now you have more siblings, it can get a lot more tougher. Or it could be, you know, they become better people after you became an adult, but they, you know, weren't really good parents before. Wow, yeah. How did your parents do? Well, I wonder what if they're on like a scale or something. Are they talking
And
scale?
boy, that f***ed me up. Cause messed me up because it's true.
I'm going to say this. I think as kids, especially immigrants, we have an instinctual and cultural demand to protect our parents because they've given so much, they traveled from far, they sacrificed a lot of things. We feel the need to protect them, and that includes criticism. And I understand it. And I want to make this clear when I ask this question. I'm not telling you to not be grateful.
No.
I'm not telling you to not respect them.
That's not what I asked.
I'm not telling you not to look up to them and said, you persevere a lot. And I respect that. That's not what I'm saying.
That's not the question.
What I'm saying is,
What you saying?
through your upbringing, were you given the optimal circumstances or the adequate baseline to be able to do well, to be able to have a life of a child that you feel is fit?
I think another way of asking that is, what didn't they provide? I feel like as we become adults, we have these moments that we probably think of as kids where it's like, man, I wish my parents did that at this time because it would have been a different reaction. So I think it's more of along the lines of, what didn't your parents do? Like, what was missing? And I'm pretty sure if you reworded it like that, you could probably find a little bit more of like that disconnect of where things might have went wrong or where you have maybe distance from your parents. But let's see what else.
And it's interesting because people will say, oh, no, I will never say anything. But you notice the life that they try to give their kids is substantially different than what their parents gave them. The reason being is because they understand instinctively some of the things circumstantially that were bad in their upbringing. And so they don't want to transfer that onto their kids.
Johnson, why are you naked? Because my t-shirt sucks. Look at Gibson. He's wearing a true classic tee. If it's
Our parents brought us into this world through no desire of our own. They made that choice, right? And as a result, it is also the responsibility to do the best that they can in giving us a life. But through circumstances, and my mom, I hold her on the highest pedestal. My mom is my homie. She's my mom. She's my confidant in a lot of ways. I love her to death. But I can also recognize many ways in which her parenting was terrible. But it's not entirely her fault. Even though her parenting was terrible, it's not entirely her fault. Her circumstances, war-torn country, didn't have an education, came here, didn't speak language, just trying to piece it together, doing it on her own. I understand everything. And it makes me respect her. But it doesn't change the fact that, as a result, I didn't have any...
Yeah, and the fact that before he said, his mom's his homie, too. I kind of talked about it before in other videos about the whole... it usually happens to the firstborn, but kind of being the child husband. But yeah, you're basically to try to raise yourself without your parent actually being there. Your parents hustling, working, trying to provide for the household, but at the same time, they're not there at the times that you need it. And I think that's why when I went back, or when I mentioned that other question, it's what didn't they do? When was the times that they missed out? When were there times where it's oh, I wished my parent was here at this time or I wish they would have reacted in this way and then make me feel like crap. Or, yeah, let's keep going. I like this conversation so far.
Guidance. As a result, I had to do so much on my own. You get me?
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. You have to do a lot on your own, and then if you have siblings, you have to do a lot for yourself and your siblings. So yeah, it can be very hard if you have a single mother who's doing the best, but not necessarily, being a parent.
And that's still my road dog. I'll give everything to her, but it doesn't change the circumstances. And the reason why I'm saying this is that when you start to look at it, we are so protective of our parents, we haven't even given us a chance to forgive them or to potentially criticize them in ways that can make them better. Because believe it or not, my mom has improved. She's become a much better parent over the years. I'm one of 7, middle child. She has. I've watched her change. But that didn't come from just being ooh, go queen, you can never... No. There were some tough conversations that had to happen. There was some self-reflection, yo, this is fucked up. There's no reason that I've been raising myself for these last 5 years. It doesn't make sense. I'm 10, what? But that's the circumstance, the cards I was dealt with. I'm not going to sit here and complain about it, but we are going to have certain conversations so that we can fix things for the future. But also...
And having those conversations, that's very scary. I mean... I know American parents can be very strict, but foreign parents, to even mention that there's even slight criticism or a slight improvement on what they could do, that is that disconnection. They're working their asses off, so they don't think that there is anything going wrong because they're doing the best they can. But even just a little bit of criticism just creates chaos in the home, and you'd rather just avoid it. But when you can have those conversations like he's mentioning, those are, and they actually the other parent actually sits down and actually listens and doesn't get deflective and actually goes with the conversation, and you guys talk about it and you embrace it and you actually can acknowledge it and move forward to, man, that is what we should all be striving for. But that is very difficult depending on, I think, the generation before and how your parents were raised and how, yeah. Let's get back into this.
So I can speak to that resentment or those weird feelings I have when it comes to my mom. To the things that I've always kept bottled inside because I want to be a good son. And I've been able to not only let those things out, but also heal from them, and then from there, create a space where she can come back into my life in a way that's much better, that I can embrace her in a lot more ways, and then I can be a better son. So this conversation that I'm talking about is one that you may not even have with your parent, because maybe your parent is not ready to acknowledge the ways in which they fucked up.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
But you still have to have that
Not
conversation
ready.
with yourself or someone close to you to be able to let that stuff out, to be able to acknowledge where you've been hurt. Because you can't forgive if you can't acknowledge you've been hurt or you've been neglected or whatever the fuck it is. You can't overcome something that you haven't acknowledged even exists. And a lot of kids,
That's true.
when it comes to their parent, have certain behaviors that if you ask them about, like they snap at little things or they get annoyed or they avoid their parents because they don't want to talk to them. The reason why that is there's a lot of unresolved issues there. And so that's what I mean. You can learn to maybe potentially even fix those if you have that conversation. So that's what I want to say.
Yeah, no, I had to. Me overall, I'd have to give my parents a B minus because
You gave him a grade.
Yeah, that's what I was talking. Like, are you talking like grade system if you're talking about how well that they do? I think that he does bring up a good point though on people just if they're really ready for these types of conversations, they can really help improve the type of relationships you have. And some people are just not ready for these conversations. But do have them with yourself and have them with someone close around you. That was good advice, but most of the time, a therapist or someone who's, medically licensed to do psychotherapy or just being able to diagnose, mental issues that may come along from child neglect or, this disconnect that he's kind of mentioning where, yeah, it's you're doing your best, but you're still not in the picture when I need you. So, I don't know. This was a really good conversation. I'm reading a book currently where we talk a little bit more about this. I know this video has more to it, but I kind of wanted to stop here because I didn't want the video to go super duper long. But I do recommend going ahead and checking out the rest of it. It is really good. There's one part in there too where he has bars, so definitely check it out. I do want to touch on this topic more later on in the future, but I would say right now I'm still in my learning phase about this topic. I just saw this like a couple days after a book that I started reading that was about this very thing, about emotional neglect. It's called Running on Empty by Jonas Webb. I may have spoke about it in a different video if you heard me talk about it. But this book is supposed to talk somewhat like this. You figure out the type of parent you are, and then you kind of figure out the emotional neglect that may have came from the parent type, and then you can kind of start having these conversations with either your therapist, yourself, or with the actual parent or person, guardian, whoever it is that were raised by. So hopefully this conversation has, helped you start this process, but good luck. See you on the next one.